We do not give in to people who try to push us around. If Hitler had successfully invaded Britain, as far as Britain is concerned, we would quickly have become Nazified. I mean, Hitler would have got rid of all those politicians who were his opponents and would have very quickly done to Britain what he'd done to France. There would have been people in Britain who would have collaborated, Oswald Mosley to mention, but the Jews in Britain would have been rounded up, 200,000 or so, and taken away. Concentration camps would have been established, and Hitler would have won the war. He would have won the war in Europe. He would have won the war against the Soviet Union, and America would not have come in to fight. Everything would look very different. You go to the theoretical success of Operation Sea Lion, you have effectively the world, the Western part of the world, divided between an isolationist America that doesn't want to be part of the world and a European continent under the thumb of one man and one regime. And that links the world of 1940 had Sea Lion prevailed with the world of 2024 if Putin is able to prevail. That is my fear. Hitler could not proceed with Operation Sea Lion, and indeed he called it off on the 17th of December 1940. It's quite a rash decision that he took on the same day. He was still working out plans, which we maybe come back to, on how to govern the United Kingdom once it had been occupied by German forces. So in the morning, the plans, in the afternoon, he decided to cancel things. Why did he cancel it? Because he was defeated in the air by the RAF in the Battle of Britain. And it's very important to stress that point. Initially, Hitler thought that somehow the British might do some kind of a deal with him, similar to the deal that it was thought by the Germans in the First World War that the United Kingdom might do. That is to say, the United Kingdom had an empire on which the sun never set, and particularly in India, that was important. And all the trade routes to India meant Suez Canal, or control Malta, Cyprus, and Gibraltar. And the idea was, let the Germans have their empire in Europe, and the Germans will initially, at any rate, let the British have their empire globally and overseas. And Hitler could not understand that the British would not accept that. So when it became clear that the British would indeed not accept it, and that became clear when Winston Churchill replaced Neville Chamberlain as British Prime Minister, Hitler determined that the United Kingdom needed to be occupied by German forces like the rest of Europe. And Operation Sea Lion was the code name for the taking of the United Kingdom. And Hitler saw that there were two conditions necessary for Operation Sea Lion to be successful. First of all, control of the airspace over the Channel and over the United Kingdom, the southern part of the United Kingdom in particular. And secondly, the naval control of the Channel and the North Sea, the eastern seaboard of the United Kingdom. And although there is some evidence to suggest with his U-boats and so forth, naval supremacy by the Third Reich could have been achieved, it was never put to the test because air supremacy, which was the first absolute condition, was never achieved. And the Battle of Britain that began July through to September was decisively won by the RAF, much to everybody's amazement, and particularly Hitler's amazement. Remember, Hitler was being advised by people who were very sympathetic to the Nazi racist cause, people like Unity Mitford and Oswald Mosley. And they were saying, you know, the British will never fight. The load of public school boys and Oxford and Cambridge graduates, they won't fight. And basically they want to be, you know, they're supportive of the idea of a master race and a Europe run by that. And they may or may not want to be part of it, but, you know, they'll let you get on with doing what you want to do. He didn't understand that those people who have been to the public schools, been to Oxford and Cambridge University, who joined the Air Corps for students in those universities were the very people who, in the hour of need, got in those planes and fought day and night to clear the skies over Britain of Nazi airplane. So that's why Operation Sea Lion never happened. The brave people, and I can remember a British historian called Alan Bullock, who in fact was the master of the college that I was at Oxford University, giving a talk to some of us and saying when he'd been a student at Oxford and when he started as a young lecturer at Oxford in the late 1930s, he'd seen all these public school types going to the officer training corps, and he thought they were, you know, upper class twits and that they were basically fascists and would go with Hitler. And he said what was absolutely amazing was when the call came, there was absolutely no doubt on whose side they were. So they were sent up in these Spitfires and anything that could fly. And Hitler could not have the primary condition he needed. But we shouldn't forget that what Hitler wanted to do was quite serious, that he, it seems, wanted to set up a German headquarters at Scarborough on the east coast of Britain. There was even a hotel, it's called the Grand Hotel in Scarborough, which is one of the biggest hotels in Europe. Hitler knew about this, and that was where the German High Command. Hitler saw Britain in terms of its eastern facing and its southeastern aspect. He'd taken the Channel Islands in May 1940, British soil, but next to France. He'd taken them, controlled them for the whole of the Second World War, and that they were to be a sort of a landing post for an army of invasion to be taken by boat across the Channel. Interestingly, using the same routes that we then used in 1944. In other words, not using Calais, but using Normandy largely to attack. But he couldn't do it because there was no air cover. And the Battle of Britain finished him. However, on the same day that he decided not to proceed with it, he also decided to give the SS fairly precise instructions of how to behave once they had taken Britain and once the swastika was flying over Westminster Palace. And it's very interesting, the list of people that the Germans intended to arrest immediately: Winston Churchill, Anthony Eden, Harold Macmillan, writers like Virginia Woolf and her husband Leonard Woolf being Jewish, prominent Jews in Britain. I think there were, you know, up to 2,000 names of people on this list. It became known as the blacklist. It wasn't the word the Germans used, but a blacklist. They were to be arrested immediately, and many of them undoubtedly would have been shot at once in Gestapo prisons that were going to be set up in Britain. So he was very serious about it. Hitler said he would wring Britain's neck like a chicken, some neck. He couldn't do it. So there'd be myths about Sea Lion, that Hitler was giving an olive branch to Hitler and that he was sort of showing he wasn't really serious, and a kind of warning. But no, they wouldn't do it. And why wouldn't they do it? I think for the same reason that Zelensky will never surrender Ukraine, that there was a tradition of liberty in England that went right back to the Magna Carta of 1215, a belief in freedom and an abhorrence for the police state tactics that Hitler was using, that we could see, and that we thought it was a repeat of what the Germans had tried in the First World War, which in a sense it was. So Hitler certainly underestimated Churchill. You know, he called him a syphilitic drunkard. It was these sorts of things. Underestimated Churchill, and underestimated the British people. And he underestimated the people in our independent public schools, because amongst the institutions that Hitler wanted to criminalize immediately Britain had been defeated, you find the Church of England, you find the public schools. So Hitler understood, I think, significantly that the Brits were independent and that they would fight for their independence. They believed themselves to be free, and they would fight to be free. And they would sooner die than surrender. And that's a big lesson, and culturally very important for Britain. And I think it binds the British people to Ukraine. I think, you know, we relive it, even those of us, I mean, almost everybody now born well after the war. It is deep in our national culture and our national psyche. We do not give in to people who try to push us around.